You are making sales, but are you actually building wealth? The two are not necessarily the same thing. My guest Barbara Huson and I talk about making money, keeping that money, and I also get some amazing money mindset coaching live on the air in this episode. Let's get wired for wealth with Barbara Huson. So here's the question. In a world where the rules of business have been written by men, how do women entrepreneurs like us, women who want to make millions of dollars and impact millions of lives, how do we create enormous success on our terms? That's the question, and this show explores the answers. Welcome to Power Presence Position. I'm your host, Eleanor Beaton, and I'm on a mission to double the number of women entrepreneurs who generate over $1 million per year in annual revenue. I'm an award-winning entrepreneur, author, and leadership coach. I'm a wife, mom of 2 boys, and I'm the CEO of a 7-figure business. Stick around because on this show, you'll learn how to think, communicate, and get paid like a 7-figure CEO. Let's go. Hello, my fierce friends. Welcome to Power Presence Position, episode number 421, Wired for Wealth, with my dear friend, Barbara Huson. So a little bit of backstory here. This is the episode I did not want to air. I really thought twice about airing this interview, not because it is not packed with value. It 100% is. Not because it's not an amazing conversation. It is for sure that. But because it's actually a very vulnerable episode for me. So in this episode, my friend Barbara Huson and I, we are talking about women, wealth, and power. And specifically, we're talking about the evolution of her body of work and the place that she has recently been exploring, which is how we wire our brains to be wealthy. And so you will see toward the end of the episode, I ask her to give me some examples of common ways in which we as women need to rewire our minds for wealth. And she asks me if she can coach me, if we can use this as a very practical example. And so I'm like, of course you can. And so we get into it. And it's a super fun conversation. I'm not sure if you can actually hear the breakthrough in the interview, but it opened up. I had a major aha moment while she was coaching me, which you will hear. And that aha moment triggered, I would say, sort of a good solid week of intense and deep thought on what got sort of opened up during this interview. So it's really because of that. You know what I mean? I like to process my stuff on my own in private, but this is so important. You know, it's so important that we as women show up for each other and that we normalize talking about money and talking about wealth and talking about business. And so I decided I'm going to go for it. I'm going to share this interview with you guys. Actually, to be honest, I didn't seriously consider not airing it. I just didn't want to be vulnerable, right? I don't like being vulnerable. I know how valuable it is, but I don't love to be vulnerable, especially on my podcast, but I'm going to do it for you. So here it is. I just decided to allow her to coach me. I think it's a really powerful part of the conversation. And I ask you to listen to it and see what comes through for you. What opens up for you as you listen to me and Barbara talk about wealth. Very cool breakthrough here. So the thing is, Barbara Huson has been on this podcast before. She was actually an early guest back on episode 53. Okay, so this is episode 421. She was a guest on episode 53, which was very cool. And Barbara Huson is truly an authority on women, wealth, and power. She is a money coach for women entrepreneurs, and she has also written multiple books: Secrets of Six-Figure Women, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, Overcoming Under-Earning, Sacred Success, and her new book, which will be coming out in January, that she's going to be talking about as well. All right, get ready for a very fun conversation with Barbara Huson. Let's go. Barbara Huson, welcome to Power, Presence, Position.
Thank you. I am so glad to be here.
So you are one of our few two-time guests on the show. I just love your work. Your name comes up so often in conversations with powerhouse women leaders who are talking about their relationship to money. So I am just so excited to have you back. It's such an important topic, right? Women.
It is and especially to powerful, successful women, because while they're busy earning it, they're not really thinking about being a good steward of their money.
Oh, and there's so much to talk. Okay, listen, that is just huge. And we're going to talk about that because we kicked off in the green room. We were talking about, I was telling you about my changing relationship to money and wealth. And we'll get into that in a moment. But for the 5 people in the world who don't know who you are, you've really emerged as an important voice in the conversation around women, money, and wealth. How did you get started on this path? If you can take us back and kind of really recap, how you got into this field.
It's so bizarre where the universe takes you and how it takes you in places you never think you're going to go. So I was raised wealthy. My father was the R of H&R Block, and the only advice he ever gave me about money was don't worry. And I thought that was great advice. And under that was the unspoken assumption there'll always be a man to take care of you. And I loved that too. And I married a man who was a stockbroker. So he was perfect. I let him manage the money. But I found out very, very early in our marriage that he was a compulsive gambler. And over the course of our 15-year marriage, every year, many times a year, I would find out he had lost my inheritance. And here's the insane part. I continued to let him manage the money because I was so intimidated by anything financial. And finally, after our divorce, I decided I do not want to deal with money. Money's not my thing. Well, I have this theory that if you don't deal with your money will deal with you. And the next year, I got tax bills for way over $1 million for back taxes my ex didn't pay, for illegal deals he got us on. And my signature was on everything. I did not have $1 million. My ex had left the country. My father wouldn't lend me the money. And that's when I knew. That's when I knew I had to get smart. And I went to classes, I read books, and my eyes would glaze over, my brain would fog up. I felt like I was terminally stupid, and I was terrified because I had 3 daughters, and I was not going to raise them on the street. My husband had left the country. And then I really believe that when you are committed, like down to your toes committed, the universe revolves to help you reach your goal. And I was a journalist writing for the San Francisco Business Times, and I was hired for a freelance project to interview women who were smart with money. And those interviews changed my life. I not only got smart with money, but I wrote my first book, Prince Charming Isn't Coming, How Women Get Smart About Money. And suddenly I had this whole new career. I was traveling all over the country. I was doing financial education for women, but I couldn't make money. So I wrote my second book. I wanted to interview women who made lots of money and see if I could do it too. And I started making 6 figures before I even finished writing my second book, which was called Secrets of Six-Figure Women. And then I started teaching courses and see if I could teach others what I was learning. And I wrote my next book, Overcoming Under-Earning. Then I wrote my next book, Sacred Success, and now my final book, well, now maybe it is my final book, is coming out in January. It's called Rewire for Wealth.
Now, we interviewed you right after Sacred Success.
Yes.
And that's when you were last on the show. Yeah.
Yes.
Extraordinary story, such an extraordinary story. And I just love the humility with which you share where you were at, and just that feeling of fogginess, of confusion, of I'm stupid, I'm never going to get this. And I mean, I think that so many of us can relate to that sense of having this topic, which may have, in my household, it was rude to ask people how much money they made. Money was something, it was weird. My dad was an economist. And so at our household, money was something you didn't ask about, you didn't talk about, but you were an idiot. And that was the culture. You were an idiot if you didn't know how to manage it.
And many of us feel like idiots The thing that I've discovered is creating wealth is much simpler than you think. But there's a whole industry out there hell-bent on convincing you otherwise, that you don't even need a lot of money to create wealth, and it doesn't take a lot of time to get smart, and it's never, ever, ever, ever too late to start.
Oh, amazing. So tell us about, so the last time you were on the show, we were talking about sacred success, and I believe this was about 2 years ago. And what was the heart of sacred success? Like if we're to kind of talk about the body of work and that, because, to me, it's also what's so fascinating here is how your body of work has evolved. And I know for listeners who are listening, just pay attention to how when we focus in, when we niche in on an area, and over time that work evolves, it keeps deepening, getting richer. Like that to me is thrilling, right? But sacred success, where we last left off, what was really the sort of compelling ideas or, principles around that particular body of work?
So let me briefly tell you how it came to pass. After I wrote Overcoming Under Earning, I had been consistently earning 6 figures for many years. And one night I woke up in the middle of the night, like just straight up, suddenly, and I had this thought in my head. I want to make millions, help millions, and give millions. That I knew how to make 6 figures. Now I'm going to millions. So I knew how I was going to do that. I was going to interview women who made millions, and that would be my next book. So I had no trouble finding women who made 7 and 8 figures, and I interviewed a lot of them. And 3 years later, I had no book. I was nowhere near making $1 million. That was 2009 was probably the worst year I'd had in a long time. And I remember a coach said to me, Barbara, you're too into doing. You need time for just being. And I took a 4-day retreat, and I took all the transcripts of my interviews with me, and I reread them. And I realized what I had missed. That it wasn't that these women were making these outrageous sums, and I was so dazzled by it because I wanted to do it too. It was the way they were doing it. They were playing a very different game than what the world models, i.e. men. Very different. And I call this way of doing work in the world sacred success. And sacred success means pursuing your soul's purpose for your own bliss and the benefit of others while being richly rewarded. And there's 3 levels of financial development. Survival, stability, and affluence. Survival is not enough. Stability is enough. And affluence is more than enough. To go from survival to stability, you must have a profit motive. You must love money. You must want to make money. Money is a great thing. And a lot of women don't. But to go from stability to affluence, you must give up profit as your primary goal. Now, it's definitely your intended income. You definitely want to make a profit. But your primary goal of sacred success to go from stability to affluence is greatness. And I define greatness as, I paraphrase a quote by Fred Buchner. Greatness is that place where your deep gladness, doing what you were put on this earth to do, meets the world's deep hunger. And that is sacred success. And that book was really tough for me to write because it was the first time that I was included spirituality, because my journey to financial success was very practical, but it was also a spiritual practice. And I didn't have the guts to come out and talk about it until I wrote that book.
Oh, literally, as you were talking, I kept wanting to pause the interview so that I could write down what you were saying. The beauty is I can always just go back and listen. I know people who are listening to this are the same. Wow. Again, man, when you devote your life to an area of work, the richness that you can harvest and share, the greatness, right?
Well, actually, it's not so much I devote my life, is I know what I want to learn.
Oh,
and then I go out and I study it and I write about it and I teach it.
Right? A life fueled by curiosity. How brilliant is that? Spoken like a true former journo. So listen, I mean, there's so much to unpack there. And that idea of because I think it's not that you said, look, it's not that they don't care about profit. They do. But oddly, once you arrive at the milestone, the grip on that loosens and you make room for more. That is what I have found, and we were talking at the top and I was describing to you how I'm different since we last spoke. And, I think for many entrepreneurs, and I know there's lots listening, in the beginning, in a startup phase, you are in survival. You're trying to make it work. You're trying to get money, to get sales. You're trying to make this business work. And then you do, and you get to a place of stability, which is really powerful. And from there, as you move to affluence, which is where I am with my business now, it's so interesting how there's a totally different energy, because you don't have that fear. You don't have the stress. Of course, we all have stress where it's not perfect. It looks different, but there's this loosening, and it is so much more about vision, about being, about spirituality. This is what they don't teach us in the MBA schools, right?
They don't teach it MBA, and they certainly don't teach it in any finance class I've ever attended.
No.
But I'll tell you what happens in this process that I've discovered is that it's not that you give up profit, but profit becomes wired in your brain. As you start becoming profitable, your brain starts, the neural pathways go stronger and stronger. When that becomes your path of profit, it actually becomes your path of least resistance. It's your strong neural pathways. So you don't have to work as hard, and you can focus on building your wealth, personal wealth, as well as profits in business, because it's wired in your brain, and you can relax more.
Yeah. You can relax. Well, that's so interesting because I have certainly found, I remember as an entrepreneur growing, developing and development. Let's use pricing as an example. So when I was in survival mode, I would price things and I would kind of forget about profit. I would price them as though I had a job and I was paying myself the job. Then in stability mode, I would put in profit, but it was like something I would have to really focus on and remember. It was hard work for me to make sure, if I put this profit margin in, will people still buy, that kind of thing. Now it's much more like, why would I do this if there were no profit? That wouldn't make sense. That makes zero sense. So of course. So I just so for those of you who are listening, sometimes, Barbara, when you talk and you talk about money and your path with money, you're so masterful about, speaking about it. And I know that there are women who are like, maybe one day I'll be as evolved as this. But from my perspective, just, having spoken to you over the years, I know that you develop over time, right?
Yes. And here's the thing about money, to those who are thinking, holy moly, that's them, but it ain't me. I'd like to challenge you because I want to, this is one of the things I didn't realize, that all problems, all challenges with money have nothing to do with money. Nothing. Money is a symptom of something deeper. Problems with money is our soul's way of getting our attention. And I believe that women have difficulty with money has very little to do with money per se. It has everything to do with their fear or ambivalence about power. I think women are afraid of their power because we don't understand power from a feminine perspective. And my definition of a powerful woman is someone who knows who she is, who knows what she wants, and expresses that in the world unapologetically. And it's not the money that gives us power. It's the process by which we must become a wealth builder. It's who we have to become. We have to become a powerful woman who speaks up and asks for what she wants and doesn't dim herself down so she doesn't make waves.
Interesting. So give me an example. So for instance, when we think about the story of your first marriage And, how for you, it was you were disempowered then. I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you were disempowered then.
I was given I had the money. I had the inheritance.
You sure did.
I gave all the power to my husband. I gave him the keys to the kingdom and then was furious when he ran away because I let him make all the decisions. And I, for the longest time, thought this was my husband's fault. Here I am with no money and 3 kids to raise. Oh my God, what an awful man. And then I realized, wait a minute. This was me. I gave my power away. And the hardest part was that I had to learn how to take it back. Mm. And that's why I really want to encourage women to think about not just earning more money, but creating wealth.
Okay, 100%. So I want to get there next. I want to break down what you just said. So about who you had to become. What's an example of a behavior or something you do today this is like Barbara, the wealth builder, versus, something that you might have done before, which was the opposite of that, like not the wealth builder. What are you know what I'm saying? Who are you today that you are this wealth building machine?
Before, had I been doing exactly what I'm doing now, I would have given all my financial statements to my husband or to the bookkeeper or to a pile and just not looked at them, just not care. I would just not look. I was in total avoidance. Now, because I hate figures, numbers, terrible at it. You don't have to be good at numbers to create wealth. So I have a bookkeeper. So he takes care of everything. However, every month we sit down and I look at my P&L and I look at where the profits are, I look at where the losses are, I look at what I need to change. We talk about that. I am an avid saver. Every month I have money automatically put aside and put in savings, both for my business and my personal. So I look at it and I have a team. It's not just me. I have my financial advisors. I have my estate planner. I have my bookkeeper. I have my CPA. I have a team. This is not a one-woman show here, and nor it should be.
Yeah. Okay. So let's go back to unpack what you said about the importance of women building wealth. What does that mean? So what is wealth and why is this so important?
I love that question. What is wealth? Let's try this.
Yeah.
How much would you need to feel wealthy, Eleanor?
30 million in cash. That's something that, listen, in my journal, there it is, 30 million in cash. That's just kind of this number I've got.
If you had 30 million in cash,
yeah,
I would say we need to talk because that's a problem.
I know. What I meant is like 30 million in investment and like you're fair. 30 million in my investment account, growing. I will feel wealthy then. That's what came to mind when you said that.
They've done research. Yeah. Extensive research over many, many years. And I've read so many studies that no matter how much a person has, they rarely feel wealthy. They need twice as much to feel wealthy. It's called a hedonic treadmill. No matter where you are, you want to get there. You get there, you want to go farther. My definition of wealth is when you have more than enough and you know it. Ooh. More than enough to live on. Because I remember years and years and years ago, I had a client had $20 million and she did not feel wealthy. She felt she lived in scarcity. Money has nothing to do with the amount. It's when you have more than enough and you know it. The Latin word for wealth, the root, is weal, W-E-A-L, which means well-being. And that's really what we're going for with wealth. Because you can have a ton of wealth and not have well-being. And you can have much less, but have enough and have well-being. And that's what we're going for. And you cannot have well-being if you don't understand what you have and how it works. When you are in control of your money, you really feel in control of your life.
Yeah.
So when you have more than enough and you know it, lots and lots of people have more than enough. They just don't know it. And one of my jobs is to help them understand it.
That's so, guys, you can't see because we're on video. Barbara and I are talking to each other on video. You will just hear this conversation, but I'm just kind of like staring at Barbara, like, like, wow, because that's so true. And there's a spaciousness in what you've just shared. There's a spaciousness in more than enough, and you know it. I remember reading that Bill Gates wanted, for him, what was really important is that he had 12 months of operating expenses covered for the business, and I remember reading this and I was like, you know what, that's a really good goal. And so I'm going to start building up reserves. I'm going to build up, personal reserves. I'm going to start building up business reserves, and I'm just going to take that money out. Like, I'm not even going to see it. I'm going to take that money out. And then that's not all cash, it's invested, but it's there, and that difference, you never see it, but you do know it's there. And there is a total difference in how you feel as a leader. And to your point, you don't need, what I don't think I realized early on is you can start that from day one.
No, you create wealth, not by earning. Wealth doesn't come from earning. Wealth doesn't come from what you bring in. Wealth comes from what you keep. And so the 3 rules of wealth is you spend less, you save more, and you invest wisely. And you start spending less than you have. You start saving small amounts, tiny small amounts, consistently till you have more than you need. And then you start putting money, investing in places and assets that grow faster than inflation and taxes can take it away. That's how you create wealth. You take your earnings, you spend less, you put it away, you don't see it. When you have enough in an emergency, to cover an emergency, then you start investing. And it's such a spacious feeling, like you said, to be able to do that. And anybody can do it because you just need to start with small amounts.
What's so interesting, in your story and experience is that you grew up rich and you ended up wealthy.
Wow, nobody's
right?
ever said that to me.
But what is the difference?
I grew up rich because someone told me I was, because my father was, but I didn't know what that meant. I didn't understand it. I didn't know what rich was. I didn't know how much money I had. I didn't know where it was. I didn't understand anything. I feel wealthy now because I have more than enough, and I know how to live within my means without sacrificing or going into scarcity. And I understand where it is. I understand. Knowledge is power. Money's not power. It's the knowledge of the money that's power.
Oh, so powerful. So your book is coming out in January and it's called Rewire for Wealth. So tell us, what is that about and how did your thinking start to evolve? We'll start with this question. How did your thinking start to evolve after Sacred Success? Because that was the first time you'd started to talk about the spirituality of money and of wealth in your work. That started this shift, right? Which has resulted in Rewire for Wealth. How has your work evolved?
So what happened is after Sacred Success came out, after I started writing Sacred Success came out in 2014, and I became very successful. I mean, a business just came in. It was really great. And things were going wonderful. That was about the time we met. We were both had the same business coach. I was doing great. And then one day, slowly over time, I started losing interest in my work. Now, I've been doing this for over 20 years, and it's like, what? And I felt like I wanted to take a sledgehammer to my business and just smash it to smithereens. I was so burned out. And I wasn't really burned out. It's like something was missing. I felt something was missing. I had no idea what it was, but I just dreaded getting up and going and doing my work, which didn't make sense. And so I just started praying. I just started praying, and then I started surrendering, and I started taking things off. I stopped taking new clients. I stopped speaking. I stopped doing all these things just to give myself time to look at what was going on. And I thought, am I done? Am I done with this? I think I'm done. Maybe I'm done. And I kept going back and forth. And so in this mental, emotional chaos, I'm sitting here on my computer one day and I'm looking at my inbox, and there is an article on neuroscience. I didn't know a thing about neuroscience. And I read this article, and it's like my brain lit up. I swear, it's like brain lit up like a slot machine, like, oh, the bells and whistles. This is it. This is it. This is the missing piece. And I started studying neuroscience. And I studied neuroscience for a year. And I started incorporating it very slowly in my work with women. And I started saying, if you could understand how to train your mind to wire your brain for wealth, it could expedite the learning curve. It could expedite your whole process in creating wealth. And 5 years later, I started giving classes. I started doing retreats. I started doing intensives. And next year, the book comes out, Rewire for Wealth.
What's one of the most pivotal things you've learned, from the work that you've been doing over the last 5 years?
It's that the mind and the brain, there's a lot of argument among neuroscientists. The neuroscientists that I follow that made the most sense to me said that the brain and the mind are separate entities that work together. The mind is the non-physical source of thought and feeling. The brain is a physical organ that determines your behavior. That what flows through the mind, your thoughts, your feelings, set off a cascade of electrical chemical impulses in the brain, which starts creating neural pathways like ditches in the brain. And these ditches are what determine your behavior. So when you keep thinking the thought, there's never enough. You grew up with your parents saying never enough. You keep thinking the thought that narrow enough. It's like the ditches keep getting deeper and deeper until you start, there's such a thing called confirmation bias, where the brain will only see what confirms its beliefs. So you will start only seeing things that confirm there's never enough. You will start unconsciously engaging in behaviors that create never enough. So, and these ditches, these neural pathways are so strong that to go against them is like going against gravity, which is why it's so hard to change behaviors, to change habitual behaviors. And I figured out that if you can shift your thinking in a very quick amount of time, you can change those neural pathways and those habituated behaviors to start creating more than enough, for example. Does that make sense?
It totally does. It totally does. So here's another question then. What would be an example? So you have, women and money, right? What would be a thought, or what would be a shift that you think our listeners could make that could really help rewire them for wealth? What might one be?
Well, first of all, let me suggest on my website, Barbara-Huson, Husom, I have a little ebook, it's free, that really describes the process.
Amazing.
It's called the Rewire Response.
Barbara-Huson.com, the Rewire Response.
And that explains it, and then that gives it an example. And give me your question.
What would be one thing that you would have us think differently to help rewire? What's one concrete action we could take to rewire for wealth?
Okay, so I'd like to make this specific, but I can tell you, but okay, do you have a challenge? Do you have a financial challenge or any challenge right now that you're dealing with?
I'm perfect. Yeah, no, just kidding. I would say that my biggest financial challenge is...
I'd like to use you as an example of rewiring.
Yeah, let's do it. So my biggest financial challenge is I really want to make sure that we are maintaining I have this, I guess it's an obsession with maintaining a 40% profit margin.
So what's the challenge with that?
Being able to really break apart expenses to make sure that is so.
I don't see the challenge. I don't see the problem you're having.
Oh, so the problem I'm having is on a monthly basis, making sure that the numbers are accurate enough that I can see that we're maintaining a 40% profit margin.
And what's the problem you're having? I don't think you're having a problem. I think it's just the challenge of actually doing it and looking at the numbers and getting them.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, the problem maybe, hang on, is making the time. I know what it is. Here's what the problem is. I'm not making enough time to look at that, to sit down and look at that. And it just never gets in on my calendar.
Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Okay.
Yeah.
So when you notice you're not doing it, what are you noticing?
Yeah. I noticed myself saying, oh, you know what? I have to get that meeting set up. And then I don't ask Alyssa to help me set it up.
The meeting. What's the meeting?
So the meeting would be with our accounting team and our director of finance.
Okay. So you don't ask.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you notice yourself avoiding it? Do you notice, I don't want to do that. Do you notice yourself procrastinating?
Yeah, I do. Oddly, I do.
So when you notice yourself procrastinating, give me an example.
So normally, I tend to notice it when I tend to think about it, it's during a transition time. So either I'm lying in bed, transitioning into sleep, or I have some meetings or something, and then I'm transitioning to get something to eat. And then it's in the transition time that I think about it. And then I say, I'm like, oh yes, I have to make sure that we get this meeting in the books. That's what I notice.
Okay.
And then I don't do it.
And you don't do it.
Yeah.
I would love to have an hour with you and to really pry down, but we don't have that. So you don't do it. One of the things to change your brain, there's a 3-step process.
Yeah.
But I go right to the third step, but I'm going to tell you the 3-step process to rewire your brain. You first recognize. The 3 steps are recognize, reframe, and respond differently. So you first recognize that I'm having this thought, this feeling about setting up a meeting or telling Alyssa to set up a meeting, and I don't do it. I notice I'm not doing it. I recognize I'm not doing it. Oh, isn't that interesting? I'm not doing it. You start observing yourself like a outside observer. You just start noticing with curiosity and not judgment or not criticism. You just start noticing that. And when you notice that you're in transition and you have the thought, it passes in your mind, I'm having the thought, and I don't do anything. And so then you reframe that. How can I see this differently? Oh, this is a time I can refire my brain from avoiding to doing, and you respond differently. And right then, write yourself a note. Right then, write somewhere that you're going to see it. When you're falling asleep, write it up. And then you see that note, and then you act on it when you come back and see that note. Now, if you don't act on that, then you have to look at what your avoidance is. Why don't you? What's going on that keeps you from doing that?
Yeah, so interesting. And you know what's coming up for me as you're saying that?
Yes, what?
Oh, that's just a lot of work. Yeah. It's the work. I'm telling myself, oh, it's going to be a lot of work to dig in, to see, to figure out what we need to do to make sure that we're hitting that profit margin, which is so interesting, which loops back to, really? Or is that true?
No, but here's the thing. What you're describing is resistance. Resistance is normal. It is good. You're on the verge of a change. You're on the verge of something when you're in resistance. Because if you weren't in the resistance, you're in your comfort zone and you don't resist. So doing this activity is quite important for where you want to go next, looking at this profit margin. And so I would want to work with your resistance. What is it that you're scared of? What is it that is keeping you, that has this message? Oh, really? That's a lot of work. Well, Eleanor, you're not afraid of work.
No.
But you're afraid of something that will come when you do that work. And that's what I'd love you to get to.
Oh, that's so juicy.
It's juicy.
It's so, because I can feel it. I'm like, man, you're so right. There's something there. What is it? Let's see.
Do you want to go a little deeper?
Sure.
Okay. So let's say every month you have this meeting with your people, and you make sure you have a 40% profit margin, and all pieces are in place. What will happen?
I'm going to have to figure out what I'm going to do next.
If the 40% is in place,
Yep.
Why does that mean you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do next?
So that's what came through to me when you said that. And it's interesting because it means that at that place, here's why it means that to me, because to me, what that says is this business is running beautifully. And congratulations, Eleanor, and now what do you want to do?
And that is what scares you.
Yeah, because I don't really know.
Because what that means is uncertainty.
Yeah.
And humans, by and large, do not like uncertainty. Uncertainty for our primitive ancestors was dangerous.
Yeah.
And our brain is wired to keep us safe.
Yeah.
So that's a whole nother discussion.
Well, and it's so interesting because when we were in the green room, before I hit record, one of the things I was talking to you about was, so we have hit a new level in my company, and I have an incredible team of leaders, who are working with me. And that opened up this space where a lot of the things that I had to do before, I don't do. So there was a time when I had to so there was a period where I had patches of stillness for the first, and I still have them, but when that first happened, I didn't know what to do with myself. And I started to feel a lot of anxiety about it. I started to feel frustrated, stressed. It was like I didn't know who I was without that hustle. And so as we started talking about this now I'm cool with having some places of stillness, but it's the uncertainty of, on the other side of this, what does that look like? Dang, you're good.
There's more here. What you're scared of is to let go of what you have in order to go where you want to go. And there needs to be a pause, a place of surrender. The metaphor of the trapeze,
yes,
in order to go from one, you have to let go of one before you grab onto the other. And that is what scares you.
So bad. It scares me so bad. The letting go scares me. First of all, that scares me. And I'm aware of that. Yeah, I didn't realize the degree to which I was kind of scared of what is this now, the uncertainty of what comes next when I can't see. I've been so busy building my business. And
that unwillingness to let go. What happens if you let go? What happens? Now, I'm going to go back. So this uncertainty scares you because it's like what I'm hearing you say is, what if there's nothing? What if there's nothing after this?
Yeah, it's, actually, that's so interesting. That's a possibility, but it's more, I feel like there's something, and I can't see it yet. Because the reality is I accomplished what I wanted to, I accomplished this goal that I had. I pretty much accomplished it. And also the other thing that happened is that I saw, so this is how you do it. So I know how to do this. So even, you know what I'm saying? Like, even though I have these other goals, I know that those goals will happen. It feels like more of something I already know how to do. And that feels like I've built the system that a team can take that over and do that.
Now you will start where you're not sure what to do.
Exactly.
You're not sure. And too bad, Eleanor, because you're meant for great things. I know that the moment I met you. You are meant for great things. And you can rest on your laurels here, but you won't be able to for forever.
Yeah.
Because if you don't let go, the universe will push you to let go. And it's interesting. There's a quote by Joseph Campbell: "The cave you fear to enter is where your treasure lies." And it's like the cave of the next The cave of the unknown is where your treasure lies.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
I'm excited to see what happens to you. I'm very excited. When you get the courage,
Yeah.
and you will, you will. There's no doubt in my mind. And I don't say that to everybody, but you will.
Yeah. It's so, guys, I hope you're enjoying this because my brain is kind of, look, you can't tell me anything. I'm like, I do my work, I do my reading, I do my journaling, I get my coaching. You can't tell me anything. You just told me, Barb.
That's funny.
Amazing.
Well, I'm excited for you.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate how you were willing to open yourself up.
Yeah.
In front of everyone.
Absolutely. Yeah. In front of our thousands of listeners. You know what, though?
Our thousands and millions of listeners.
Right,
yes.
Our bajillions. But here's the thing. I mean, I think that, I so appreciate, this was just fun, right? I so appreciate your willingness I appreciate both of our willingness to go there. And here's why. I never, ever would have thought that what was, the thing that makes me put this part off is actually much more than the profit margin and the money. And I also would not have connected that 100% to this thing that I have been very aware of daily. I'm like, I am telling myself, girl, you need to let go. Like, it's time. The team is amazing. You can let go. You know this. And I'm like, why am I not, I'm not a micromanager, but I can completely see places where I need to step back. Did not put those. And when you put those two together, to me, that's the big, powerful insight here of the what's next. It's the thing that it's a little terrifying. I'll be honest to all of y'all, but it's also very exciting.
No, this is good. That's why nobody really talks much about the importance, the critical role that resistance plays in financial and personal success. It's like we think resistance is bad and we got to power through it. No, resistance is a motherload of information. Resistance only occurs. You can only find yourself in resistance when you're on the brink of something bigger. And that scares our little ego.
Yeah. I like my cozy life.
You don't have to leave your cozy life. This is what happened when before I discovered neuroscience. I had mastered what I was doing. I lost interest. There's got to be something else. And I stepped back and I surrendered and I let myself, and I'd done it before, so it was easier. And then something better came along. It's like Carl Jung said, for better to come, good must stand aside. And so you'll still have your cozy life. It'll just be a better cozy life.
Yeah. I love it. Oh, it's so great to connect with you. I'm so appreciative that you gave us the gift of your time to be on the show, to coach me, and to share through that process. Like, it's so much better when people can see it in real time, right? To really, and I know that I know we'll get a lot of emails about this.
Good. I really appreciate how you went there with me. You kind of played with me there.
Yeah, totally.
I really appreciate that. Was much more fun.
Dynamite. So listen, we've talked about Barbara-Huson.com. People can go there and download what's it called again?
It's an ebook called The Rewire Response. It talks about the 3 steps. It really gives an overview of neuroscience, how it affects our finances, and 3 steps.
Amazing. And then, of course, we'll let the world know when your book comes out.
Thank you.
What final piece of insight would you like to share today?
I don't think it's insight, it's appreciation. That you let me go there with you, that you opened up. And that I think this time that we're in now with the virus, this is just coming to me, but I think this time with the virus and how we're all, there's no normal. There's no normal. This is a wonderful time for people who are playing with the idea or getting an intuition that it's time for some changes. This is a perfect time to go into exploration. Not necessarily huge, massive changes, but start the exploration process.
Well, that's what I'm going to be doing. Barbara Huson, thank you so much for joining us. It was just such a pleasure to speak with you again.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to Power, Presence, Position. Your message, your mission, your millions. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but one of life's greatest pleasures is enriching conversation with intelligent, insightful women entrepreneurs who are unapologetic about their ambition. If this is you, then you need to join the Power, Presence, Position community of practice. This party is happening over on Facebook. You can access it by going to eleanorbeaton.com/community. Join us over there where you can access our book club, happy hours, executive roundtables where we talk about the issues that matter most to women entrepreneurs. This is a high-level conversation, the best conversation about women entrepreneurship on the internet. Join us at eleanorbeaton.com/community.